Another person who was there at the time was Michael Brock, who we had a lot of fun together, Michael and I, and misbehaved terribly over the years. He was an announcer originally, as I recall, and then joined the talks department, where he became responsible for some of the most alarming fashion statements ever to be inflicted upon viewers. Michael Brock, my dear friend.
Nice to be here.
You've seen a few friends here today.
Yes, friends, I must say, and a few I'd forgotten about, I have to tell you. I left the ABC 33 years ago, and I've not really been back since. I joined in 1963, so I only had 14 years with the ABC. The first 6 years were in radio, and it was 69 before I moved into television. One of my memories, though, is of my first 3 weeks with the ABC, at which time I was vaguely terrified all the time because I didn't really know what I was doing there. I'd auditioned and, much to my amazement, passed the audition. So I came up from Albany, which was where I was living, and found myself eventually going on to radio. I hadn't been at the ABC for more than 4 weeks when a buzz of excitement went around the old building, and we heard that the general manager was coming over to visit, Duck Manton. And I know it didn't mean a great deal to me because I was still spending time trying to fit myself into the culture of the ABC at that stage. But everyone else was very excited about it, and I didn't think too much about it. One day I came to work to take over in 6WN at 9 o'clock in the morning, and as was the habit then, you'd go into the studio supervisor's office before you went into the studio. I go into the studio supervisor's office, as I should, and there are 2 blokes there. One of them I recognised was Eric Scholl, the state manager, and the other one wasn't, and I didn't know who he was. And this fellow came forward muttering to me, and I said, "Oh, pleased to meet you." And Mr. Manton, he looked at me and said, "Duck Manton." And I thought he was giving me permission to call him by his first name, which I thought must be Duck, which is a strange name. But so I said, "Oh, pleased to meet you, Duck." At which time I remember distinctly, he looked at Eric Scholl with a look of stunned bewilderment on his face, and Scholl, whose habit it was, he was a very shy man, was busy looking for a corner to hide in. I was rescued, I think, by either Ian Wynne or Earl Reeve, who might have been the duty supervisor that day, as they came in, not knowing what had gone on, but got me out of trouble. I knew I'd committed a faux pas, but I didn't know what it was. And whether it had any effect on my career in the ABC, I don't know. One of the other things that has always entertained me in my small-minded way is the times that we were doing a series called Review on television. And that was a program of film reviews, theatre reviews. John Harper Nelson would do the theatre reviews, Robin Juniper would do some of the book reviews, and Patrick Hutchings, eventually Professor Patrick Hutchings, would do the art reviews. Now, Patrick was a case. He was sort of like a poor man's Barry Humphries, with words that were A, long, and B, nobody had ever heard of them, but they were real words. And he did upset some people when we used him as an art critic. And on this one occasion, we'd gone, 3 of us, Jim Stafford, myself, Patrick and the film crew, had gone down to Bunbury to do a piece on an art exhibition down there, trying to show the regions that we were interested. And on the way back, we said, look, in a fortnight's time, Review will be on April the 1st. We should do something for that. So we spent our time in the car on the way back determining what we'd do. And we decided to do a review of an exhibition which we would put together, made up of illustrations taken from Gray's Anatomy. So there were line drawing illustrations of muscles and various bits of the anatomy that you won't want to know about, and we framed them and hung them all in Jim Stafford's house. And Patrick came along and did his piece to camera with these strange pictures, raving about, well, I think he was raving, it was hard to tell with Patrick, but because of the words he would use, but he was on about how wonderful this exhibition was. And one phrase has stayed with me forever because we devised it on the way back in the car. Scumbling, as many of you may know, is an actual word which is used in the art world for things you can do with a brush. Effect is used, of course, but the word we thought up was inflicious. Now, inflicious scumbling effect sounds great. I still think it sounds great, and I have used the word inflicious on occasion since, and nobody has ever picked me up on it. We used inflicious scumbling effect in Patrick's piece, and we carried on with the program. Didn't say anything about April 1st at all. After the program, a couple of phone calls, one of them from Bill Warnock. Many of you may know Bill Warnock, a lovely guy who was a good friend of mine, and we were good mates. We had the same sense of humour and so on. He was a very important man in Perth in many ways. But he hated Patrick Hutchins and what he did, or what he said more. And when he rang, he was speechless with anger. He was saying, "Brock, look, I've got friends here, we're having a drink of wine, and we've just had to listen to that twaddle by that idiot. Why are you using him? Get rid of him." So on and on and on he went. And after a while I cut him off and I said, "Bill, what date is it?" And there was silence for a while, and then, "You bastard." It was some time before he would talk to me again after that. But I've always remembered that as being one of the fun things.
Michael, thank you. And thanks to all our guests up here this afternoon. Well, please.
Look, if you've got till 8 o'clock, we can just keep talking. I know, but Michael reminds me of a lovely story about a man who was in the finance department, or accounts as the ABC used to call it, Ted Barnes. And God bless you, Ted, wherever you are. But Ted used to go through all the official bump that was put in after programs. That is, an account of how much it cost, what the money was spent on, and all the rest. And in a particular episode of Review, Ted Barnes rang Michael and said, "Michael, did you have a party after Review the other night?" And Michael said, "Well, we had a couple of beers, you know, the way we usually do." "Why do you ask?" "On the sheet here it says Tucker, $20. Michael said, "That's Albert Tucker, the artist."